Welcome to Homeschool Your Way. I'm your host, Janna Cook, and BookSharks Community Manager. Today's episode is all about balancing a busy homeschool life. And my guest, Trisha Kondratek, is going to be talking about her homeschool life for the past 7 years with her 4 boys. Now, that may seem kind of chaotic to mothers like me who only have girls, but I am excited to hear how Trisha and her family is doing life not only with homeschool, but adding in all types of sports and other activities that they do as a homeschool family. So let me introduce you guys to Trisha. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good. I'm excited to get talking about your homeschool life. And I know that when we kind of prepped for this podcast, I was overwhelmed at your schedule. So but yet here you are joyfully sharing your experience with our listeners. So why don't you just introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you got involved in homeschool to begin with?
Let's see. I am, like you said, a mom of 4 boys. Let's see. My oldest, Logan, is 12. Kellen is 10. Hayden is 9, and Grayson is 7. I have to think about it as I go through, because I'm like, even though there's 4 of them, we call it organized chaos in our house. So it's just this constant ruckus of fun and learning and mud, and it's a lot of fun, but it is chaos. um, yeah, so we started homeschooling actually shortly after we had our fourth. So literally, we were knee deep in diapers and toddlers, and um, our youngest he was in the middle of kindergarten. And yeah, we had previously, the year before that, we had lived in England. Lots of long stories. But he had started reception, which is their version of kindergarten over there. And they do that at the age of 4. And it kind of reminded me of the way that we had kindergarten as a kid. It was very learn through play, hands on, cutting pictures out of magazines and pasting them on stuff, and the outdoor mud kitchens. And it was just, he loved it. It was such an amazing experience, and he learned so much. And when we came back to the United States, he did kindergarten. So he kind of did it again because he was 5. And it was just very different. And it was not just different from the UK, but it was also very different from the way that I remember public school when I was a kid. And he struggled, and like he since then has been diagnosed with dyslexia, but just in general, the public school system just didn't quite fit him or even our family the more we looked into it. And so at the end of his kindergarten year, we thought, we'll try homeschooling. Had some friends, and my sister also homeschool. So it was something we had always thought about. I didn't know if I would be a good homeschool mom because I'm not naturally a teacher at all. Um, but we gave it a try. Honestly, finding a curriculum was really hard because there's so many out there. It's very overwhelming. And as every mom I have ever talked to that has homeschooled, they will all attest that the very first year is always the hardest year. You're learning what works for you and your family, what works for your kids, how to kind of unschool and change things from the public school system and our perceptions, and kind of creating your own um, I don't know, your own classroom. And like, whether it's indoors, like I'm sitting in our classroom right now, but we also go outdoors, or on the go and field trips, and you kind of make it what it is. And the first year is always a little hard, but even amidst the hard of learning how to homeschool and having 4 boys and a baby and a toddler and all the things, we just absolutely fell in love with it. And we've now are homeschooling all 4 of them. So Logan is in 7th grade and Grayson is in 1st grade. So we have kind of this full gamut of elementary through middle school, and it's so much fun. We just love it.
Now, when you were looking at all of those options, for me, it's very interesting because when I homeschooled in the 90s, I think there were like 3 options. And that
Oh, really?
and that was
Oh,
it. Like, unless your
wow.
parents were very creative and wanted to give you like an unschooling situation, you had about 3 choices, and they're still around and they're kind of dry. I'm not going to lie. Like, they're workbook based, and it
Mm-hmm.
worked and I was educated. But now all of these years later, I mean, I go to conventions and that's how you and I met. There are so many things and
Yeah.
it can be overwhelming. So as you were
Yes.
taking in all that information and kind of deciding what was going to work for your family, what drew you to BookSharks literature-based learning? Like what made you go, this is the one for me?
Um, we did see a lot of the ones with the workbooks, and they looked easy as far as everything's ready to go. Um, it just didn't quite sync with us, and it was it was kind of a serendipitous moment when we found Bookshark. It was at the homeschool convention, the FPEA homeschool convention in Orlando, Florida. Um, and I had been looking online for months before this, and I was like, I need to be physically there. I need to look at things and touch them with my hands. And I had been there for days. And like you say, it's really big. It's very, the whole process is overwhelming, but that convention is very overwhelming. And on the last day, it was like the last aisle that I had not been down, and Bookshark was there. And for us, I'm a big book junkie. I'm like, my husband says that it's my one flaw that I just have too many books. I'm like, we've moved quite a bit, and every single time I get the whole, we have too many books because the book boxes are so heavy. I got my love for learning from my grandma and grandpa hits, my paternal grandparents. They just got me stuck on the classics. And then from there, I just fell in love with, the world of books that's just unending. And I don't know, there was something when we saw Bookshark. I love the Usborne books. We have so many of them naturally. Um, it just it's fun to dive in through the books and kind of enter these worlds, and to be able to do it through like history and science is just such a fascinating way to learn, and my boys just can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of it. It's something that we can also do together as well, if that makes sense too. And like we can sit down together, and I will have a pile of books behind me on the couch and next to me on the couch and maybe one on my lap, and they all want to read together. Or I'll find them in the classroom and school is over and they've taken the Bookshark books down and they're sitting in a pile around them and rereading them. I'm like, we love books in general. And so Bookshark just kind of naturally filled, or yeah, not filled the gap, but kind of um filled into our life perfectly. It made so much sense to me. And the fact that everything kind of connects also makes sense. Um, what you're reading with your like your read alouds goes with the history. And it just kind of creates this really nice arc, which I appreciate that aspect of it. I like to kind of keep organized, and so it kind of seems organized in that manner, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. I will say personally, when I wasn't homeschooling, I kind of did everything as a kid. I remember specifically some very key moments when I read historical novels and how it changed how I viewed learning. And so
Yeah.
finding a curricula that had that as the core was like a no-brainer for me. I'm like, "Wait, I can teach my kids through the literature instead of it just being, oh, here's something that you might enjoy. It kind of goes with the lesson." It's like, "No, it is the lesson." I'm like, "If you don't wanna learn through story, I don't know how you wanna learn because
Hmm.
all of life is one big story, right? And then we have all of, I mean, obviously, the way Netflix and all of the streaming services are so popular, it resonates with humans to hear stories, to be immersed in the story. So yeah, I'm with you. I fell in love. I was like, oh my gosh, give me another book. What's the next book? Like, I was so excited. And, realistically, like, there are days when kids are reluctant to be read to, right? Everyone has their moods, everyone has their preferences.
Yeah.
But now, on the other side of it, having now graduated 2 of my girls, and seeing them read for fun, seeing them really want to delve deeper when a topic is brought up, they wanna talk about it, they're not just like, "Oh, okay, that happened." In fact, my youngest was just telling me, um, as we're recording this, the bridge in Baltimore had gone down during this week, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so she had said, I'm so much more sensitive to these topics than I was as a kid. And I thought that's interesting because I kind of thought it would be the reverse, right? As a kid, you'd be a little bit more sensitive. But now, as she is maturing, she's like, I'm even more sensitive because I understand the implications of what that means and the people who are affected. And then and she didn't use this word, I'm going to use this word, the commerce, right? That now we
Yeah.
understand, like, it's just this ripple effect. And it's not just an event happened. It's like an event happened, and now how does it affect those in the immediate area and then
Yeah.
expanding outward? And I love that my kids have been exposed to that and they can verbalize that and go, okay, we're not just in a vacuum. Incidences are not just in a laboratory, right? They are human experiences. And how does that make us better humans? And so obviously I love BookShark. I love that you love BookShark. But yeah, it's a really neat way to educate your children. And like you said earlier, to be re-educated as
Yes.
parents.
Yeah, I'm kind of a geek for learning. It's funny, it's like when I was in school, I did what I needed to do to get by, and then once I went to college, it's one of those things where you just realize, oh, I get to learn on my own instead of being forced to be learned or forced to learn. And and then I started falling in love with it. I had fallen in love with reading prior to that, but I didn't really fall in love with learning until I went to college and it was on my own. Um, and I think that's why one of the reasons why I love Bookshark, because even though, you know, I am teaching my kids and it is kind of okay, mandatory, you got to get in the classroom and get your work done. They want to learn. They have that love for learning. And I don't think it's necessarily just because we homeschool. I think it's because we have the right curriculum for our family. And I think that makes all the difference is, finding the curriculum. And I'm so lucky that we found it. I've met many parents who have kind of switched and they switch again because they can't find what fits for their family. And really, like I said, it was a serendipitous moment when we found Bookshark because I just knew right when I saw it, I said, this is perfect. We've always read, we love this kind of stuff. And then, of course, I'm like, I love all the curriculum, but the hands on history, the history by itself, I'm just like, I'm the biggest geek for it. I have turned so many people on to Bookshark just by their history alone. I absolutely love it. The books are incredible and it brings history to life. And for somebody who, in the public school system, you have to learn the dates and the names and the events, but you don't, like you said, you don't know the understanding of like what is actually going on because you're so busy memorizing things. When you're learning it through stories, you get a feel for it. It kind of puts you into that moment in history and it helps you appreciate it at a completely different level and understand it more. And I just love it. I have our two oldest ones doing their history together, kind of do the year between their ages. And I love it because they get these discussions going and these debates talking about, um, theories of, what were the founding fathers thinking and, how much pressure that was and, what was it like for their families to be able to support them. Like they literally get into these conversations because they're not just reading just to memorize, they're reading to kind of see themselves in history and they understand it more. And the appreciation for history is just there. I love it. Like I said, I'm a big geek. I could go on.
Well, I'm right there with you. It would be unfortunate if anyone listening to this podcast stopped now, because we could kind of make it seem like all you guys do is sit in the classroom and read the books.
Yeah.
And that is not what happens at your house.
No.
In fact, it's the academics is a very small portion of your learning environment in your home. So what are some of the other things that you guys are involved in that further your learning outside of books?
Well, besides, the usual homeschool co-ops and things like that and field trips, we are very active in sports. So our oldest and then our two younger ones all play hockey. And let's see, Logan and Hayden are both in travel hockey, and that starts from the month of August, about end of July, beginning of August. And that goes until about the beginning of March. It can kind of extend. And when I say travel hockey, I'm talking like practices multiple days a week and then traveling most weekends. And like our leagues are usually, we're in northern Alabama, so we will go to like Nashville or we'll go to Atlanta. So it's about 2 or 3 hours away. That's manageable, but you're gone all weekend. And then we'll do some tournaments up in like St. Louis, Indianapolis, kind of a little bit further away. They did one up in Notre Dame. Both of them happened to be at the same time, which worked out really well. So our whole family could go together. Um, and that was really fun. Hayden's team made second place, which was really cool. But yeah, so we've got that going on. And then all four of the boys play lacrosse. So they do fall ball. So while we also have hockey going on, we might be taking a couple to the lacrosse field and a couple to the hockey rink. And then they're in spring. So spring lacrosse usually starts at the end of January, beginning of February. So there's a lot of crossover there. February is a very busy month in our house, and it goes until about May. And it just kind of seems to just keep chugging along. But what my husband and I call it, we call it the divide and conquer. We're very good at planning out our time, being organized with our time, and figuring out who needs to go where and who do we need to drop off and then go pick somebody else up. And there's a lot to go along with it. But it's just been such a fun experience for us. We have, hockey families, what we call them. You meet the people on the field and you kind of create this camaraderie, with everybody there. And there are actually quite a few homeschool families, both in hockey and lacrosse. Actually, one of Logan's really good friends, who's the goalie on his team, he's also a homeschool kid. So I'm like, there's quite a lot of them that are in sports and homeschool as well. And honestly, I appreciate the fact that we do homeschool because we are so busy. I actually get some time with my kids too. So as much as we're busy, I still get family time, which I love and appreciate.
Yeah, could you imagine trying to fit in homework and studying for tests
Yeah.
and being gone and then having to make up that work when your children get back? I mean, there's so many benefits to this way of life, which homeschooling really is a way of life. It's not just a way of
Hmm.
educating your children. It is an entire like worldview, I think, for most of us. And so, yeah, just I couldn't imagine like being in your shoes and then trying to be the stress of did you turn in that assignment and you're missing this? Where did that, did the dog eat that homework? I mean, so many of the things that are eliminated because of the way you're choosing to educate. You mentioned two key factors, staying organized. And I think every homeschool family really would benefits from being organized and even organized chaos, right? Like I get it. We're
Yeah.
not all of us are type A and color coordinated and all of those things, but to be organized. So, what are some of the things that you have found that have helped you stay organized in the midst of this chaos?
Okay, so my favorite thing, I'm very old school in this manner, but I have like the good old fashioned binder calendar. I love this thing. I okay, it is filled to the gills. And I have literally next year's already. So I do the one that is for school. So this is the 23-24. So this will end in June. And I already have the one for 24-25, and I'm already filling it in. This is kind of my way of keeping track of everything. So from hockey and lacrosse schedules, doctor's appointments, co-op, anything on here. But the thing that actually makes it a little easier for me is a trick that I learned from my mom. When we were kids, she gave us all our own like plastic bowls, plates, cups. So she basically knew who wasn't putting their stuff away and she knew who to get on their. So if it was a turquoise one, it was mine. I was in trouble. And so we did that, but not necessarily for the kids to get in trouble, just so that they had their own things. So they have their own backpacks and specific colors, and they tended to gravitate to specific colors. Logan is red, Kellen is blue, Hayden is orange, and Grayson is green. They've all picked their colors and they've all stuck with them. And so when I have my binder, my calendar, I literally, everything is color coded. So not only can I see the day, but it's easy for me to see that, like today, Grayson, he's green. He has lacrosse at 5:15. Hayden is orange and he has lacrosse at also 5:15, and it tells me where it is, but it's easy because it's color organized. So if they need to look for something, they just have to look for the orange for that day. um, I also have a color. I'm purple and my husband is black. He's usually not in here too much, and like I'll add him occasionally, but most of the time his stuff is during work, so not necessarily something we need to see. But this is the way that I kind of keep my life organized and I can see it a month at a time and see it month to month, because sometimes, like you said, you have to plan ahead a little bit. Not that I can have control of it, but it helps me to be able to have that, you know, organized chaos. So it is chaos. Things are movable, but at least we can kind of have an idea of how to plan things. Um, and in our classroom, I actually have other calendars. So in our classroom, we have our classroom calendar that has just our co-ops, just our things going on with school. So if they want to know something that's school related, it's there. And in our house, in our hallway, we have one that's just like the kids, so they can see where they're going at specific times. So they can see, okay, I have lacrosse at this time, and that can kind of help them also gauge when things are going on. So, but this is like the master calendar. And the best trick of all, erasable pens. You can get them
Mm.
in all the colors, but they erase, because we know that in life, things are going to change. The amount of times that they've scheduled a practice and then they add, oh, they can get on the ice a half hour early, or oh, this certain team needs to practice this day because they have games on their other day. Can we switch with them? And I have to erase it instead of just crossing things out, because otherwise this thing would just be scribbled all over the place. um, Erasable pens. I learned it from another homeschool mom. They are the best thing in the world. Yeah, lifesaver right there.
Trisha, I'm a little disappointed that your color is not turquoise, and I think maybe your mom might be too.
I do like turquoise, but since Kellen's is blue, his usually tends to be kind of a turquoisey blue. I figured I'd give it to him.
All
Um,
right. Okay, fair
yeah.
enough. Now, I know as an adult with a crazy schedule, a mom who homeschools one. I have two now adult children, if you want to call them that. They're 18. I don't know how that really flies, but working full time, having my own activities, I feel like having things organized is a coping skill for me to keep anxiety at bay. So there
Yeah.
are times where I am like starting to feel anxious just because life is closing in on me. And I am not old school. I am a digital calendar, but it brings me such comfort to pull it up and go look at the next day and go, okay, I know who's going to be here. I know that I've built in time
Hmm.
here. And it really starts to bring my anxiety back down. It's like, okay, this is manageable. And like you, I can look out the week, I can look out the month. And I was thinking about the other day and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of like a binky. Like this is my pacifier that like when I start to get worked up that I just don't know how it's going to all get done, I pull it out. I'm like, okay, wait, this is my comfort. This is my weighted blanket. And I have to imagine that the same applies to our children, whether they know it or not. They know where they're going to next. It'd be different if
Hmm.
we were just grabbing them and saying, get in the car, we're supposed to be. And they're like, we didn't know we were supposed to be there. I'm with you. The more information they have, the more they can own it and take, control over what they pack and how they do it in their colors. Like I think even colors. So it's like here's these great tips for parents that maybe you're not doing any of these things and your kids are kind of running around feeling like so out of control that maybe implementing a few of these things in the busy life of homeschool can really help bring some calm into the storm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it is, like you said, it's a storm. And like there's a lot going on. We've had days where, especially like I said, February, when you have that overlap of all of the sports, it is our way of kind of being able to not control it, but have that calm in the storm, to have kind of an idea of where we're headed and how to get there and how to time manage. And it's not just for us, it is for the kids. And I think, like you said, it is comforting for them to know, you know, this is what we have going on tonight. You have your schoolwork, you have this amount of time, and they know that we have to leave a certain amount beforehand. And if they're one of the kids that's going to a sporting event, they have to pack their own bags, they have to get themselves ready. We become a very like self-sufficient family. It's another thing that we've done to be able to handle all of this, is to teach them to keep themselves organized and to manage their own things. For one, I can't do it all for them. I'm like, our life is crazy enough. I can't do all the thinking for everybody, but also it's homeschool. It's teaching them life skills. Um, and I think it's been really helpful for them to be able to see that. And it creates less panic for them and less uncertainty. I'm like, our life, like you said, it's so busy, it's chaotic all the time. But I think it makes it so that there's less of that anxiety and that stress. And so we can have fun in those moments and actually be able to enjoy the moments. Um, and then, have the crazy and be okay with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, we've had days where, things are, you have those days where just the alarm doesn't go off on time and you don't get all the schoolwork done, or you hit too many red lights and you're running late, and it's not a perfect system, nothing will ever be, but it's trying to be able to handle the storm as it's going on, and so far it seems to be working pretty good. Yeah.
Well, talk about the teaching of the life skills. You kind of mentioned helping them stay organized, but what are some of the other things that you're teaching your boys as part of your learning environment, your learning culture for life skills? What are the things that they are responsible for in the day to day?
Yeah, so we've kind of brought them up in we are a team mentality, like we are a pack family. And it's not that mom and dad do everything, we do everything together. And so since they were really little, they've started picking up their own stuff and help put their clothes away. And now, from the ages from 7 to 12, we have now like a chore chart that goes monthly. So it switches monthly and we do it on a monthly basis instead of a weekly. That way they kind of have a chance to get their skills more set. And this is more for like the younger kids. Grayson, who's 7, at this point, trying to teach him how to vacuum an edge, they need that repetition. But yeah, we do it on a monthly schedule, and every single day is kind of broken down. They have just one chore to do. But their life skills, like, um, cleaning the bathrooms, or who's going to do the laundry, and the person who's doing the laundry is the one who's washing all of the clothes. We do all the boys clothes together, they're putting them in the dryer, and then they take it to the bed, and then everybody folds their own clothes and puts them away. But they're kind of the one that's managing putting it from one station to the other. Somebody's got to pick up the dog, droppings outside, and de-shed the dogs and make sure that, they're fed and things like that. So it's chores that are like everyday things, but these are things that they're going to need to do when they're on their own. And we want to make sure that we're a team. We all help out. We all have our part in this. We don't have a maid. We don't have a cleaning service. Probably, not everybody can. And these are good life skills for them to be able to have. I want them when they go off on their own, when they move out of the house, to be able to know how to do the dishes, or how to, clean their own house or do their own laundry, and not have to think about it. It kind of is a normal thing. But once again, we're a team. We all kind of handle things in this house in different ways. I do the teaching, I do the prepping the meal, or well, more of the meal planning. We kind of all prep together. Another thing we do is spend a lot of time in the kitchen together. My husband does all of the when it comes to the sports, he's the one that organizes all that. He does the sign up for that. When it comes to sports, that's kind of his thing. I'm more of the taxi driver and getting them there, and like the cheerleader and the support mom. When it comes to the homeschooling, I'm the one who does more of like the teaching and the ordering and the organizing of it all. And he usually assists mostly on math. So we're kind of, once again, we are also a team as well. And I think it's good for them to know that we all have our part in it. We all help each other out. Um, and I love the fact that they're learning these life skills too, so that when they're on their own, they're not going to flounder. They're going to get a great education, but also they're going to have all of these life skills, so that hopefully, whether they go to college or trade school or whatever they do, that they're going to be successful and confident. And, yeah, they're going to have some questions, but they're not going to be without the skills that they need to kind of thrive in life.
Which I think back to like the Renaissance man, right? So you can
Hmm.
be able to discuss very complex scientific theories and yet do your laundry and know that you have to eat and plan
Yeah.
ahead and, get to the next thing on time. You don't get lost in, you get so focused on one thing that you can't do something else. I mean, I love that. That's definitely that's my wheelhouse. Like that's where I want to be. I want to be able to do a little bit of everything. I
Yes.
don't have one specialty, right? And I'm a little envious of those who do have that specialty and that mindset that like they're so passionate, they're so focused, and like my passion is just like really spread out toward a lot of things, but then I get to kind of experience all the things. And I love that I've been able to show that to my kids as well through this whole experience. Before
Hmm.
we go, do you have a homeschool hack you can share with our listeners?
Think in general, like whether you're a homeschool mom or whether you are like any kind of mom, or even if you're not a mom, I think it's to manage the anxiety of being, late, or if you have a lot going on. It is literally, it's kind of, how lately people have been saying, oh, it's mom math, it's dog math, it's things like that. But it's kind of like, homeschool mom math, I guess. It's okay. So we're in the classroom, we have X, Y, and Z going on, but we have to be at the lacrosse field at 5 o'clock. But the coach wants them to be there 15 minutes beforehand because practice is going to start at 5 exactly. So we have to be there at 4:45. It's going to take us about 25 minutes to get there, 20ish, 25 minutes, but it's during traffic, so we're going to probably want to leave 30 minutes early. He's going to have to get himself dressed beforehand, get his bag packed. That means we're going to have to start getting ready at 4 o'clock, which means that if he is going to want to have like a small dinner before that, I've got to have him eating by like 3:30. So it's not like a big meal in his stomach, which means that we need to start prepping it about 3ish or 2:30ish. And it's literally kind of thinking backwards. And okay, if we have to do that, then that means that I need to make sure that we're starting our afternoon history and science right after lunch. We can get that done, we can all get in the kitchen and everybody kind of helps prep the meal. He can have something, and usually we'll make something that he can eat a little bit beforehand. He's not having a heavy meal. He'll eat at 3:30, be done by 4. He can get his bag packed and you know all of his gear ready to go. He's getting dressed. Okay, dogs are let out and now they're in their crates. Lights are turned off in the house because I'm telling you, boys turn on every single light in the house. Everything is turned off. All right, everybody pile into the car. And a lot of times the other kids will either bring activities or if they haven't finished their schoolwork, I love it. They can take their schoolwork with them and we can continue, teaching in the car. And we're leaving by 4:15. We get to the rink or get to the field. Apologize. Always the rink or the field. Usually about 4:45, and that way he can get his cleats on, get 100% geared up with all of his pads and everything, and be out in the field and maybe throwing the ball around before practice starts at 5. It's not just our time and teaching our kids about being responsible for their time, but also when they are on a team with any sport, it's not just about them, it's about their team. It's about respecting their coach and their time. And so we want to instill those life skills right now. So I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of like backwards math, but once again, it makes it so we're not rushing. It makes sure that, they eat something before they do that. They make sure that I can get, our schoolwork done in time if we can. Giving myself a little grace if it doesn't happen. We can always take it with us. Um, but yeah, I'm like, it seems to kind of doing the reverse engineering of with time, it helps us to be able to manage everything a little bit better and kind of thinking about the entire process of everything. Um, yeah, it helps us with our homeschool and it helps us with our crazy busy schedule with all of our sports and sometimes dropping one kid off at one location and then going to another one. You just kind of have to think about when do I have to leave X place to go to the next place. And yeah, it's probably been one of our biggest tricks to managing both homeschool and a busy um, travel sports life is to be able to check our time, kind of look at the day. And it's not written down or anything, it's just kind of that mental math that we do back. And it's become a habit to the point where the boys are like, hey, mom, it's 2:30. Shouldn't we start making dinner? Like they've kind of gotten to the habit. Um, so it's worked out really well. Like I said, we're a team. Um, this organized chaos is definitely a team effort, and you know, we do the divide and conquer very well. We assist each other. Yeah, and I don't know. I wouldn't trade our life for anything. It's a little crazy. Yes, I know I overwhelm people when I talk about our life, but it's fun, and I know that in 12 years when Grayson is 18 and graduating, that I will miss the constant chaos. And I am so appreciative to be a homeschool mom so that I can have the time with my kids in the midst of the chaos, and we can have our relationships and, the moments where we're sitting on the couch and reading our history books together, and, our conversations in the car while we're driving to another sporting event. And it's just been a very amazing, fulfilling life.
Well, I am so grateful that you took the time to share your journey and your life with us and our listeners. I am also grateful that you are a longtime BookShark user. So we want to say
Mhm.
thank you for that. That is a great hack. I think anybody can apply that to their life, and most people should apply that, including myself. So I'm not scrambling out the door with 5 or less minutes to spare for sure. Thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you guys for being here. Until next time, bye bye.